Imagine holding a piece of ordinary pocket change in your hand, something you'd easily toss into a vending machine or leave behind on a store counter, only to discover it is secretly worth a life-changing fortune. Right now, hiding in plain sight inside cash registers, old jars, or perhaps even sitting on your own dresser, is a specific coin that looks completely normal. But if you know exactly what to look for, this single coin could pay off your debt, buy a brand new car, or fund an incredible vacation. To understand why this seemingly mundane piece of metal is a modern holy grail for treasure hunters, we have to travel back to the mid-1960s, a period of massive economic anxiety, secret government transitions, and a colossal mistake that the United States Mint desperately tried to cover up. By 1964, the United States was facing a severe crisis. 4 generations, American dimes, quarters, and half dollars were made of 90% pure silver. However, as the global price of silver began to skyrocket, the intrinsic value of the metal inside the coins actually became worth more than the face value of the coins themselves. People realized this almost overnight. Citizens began hoarding coins by the millions, melting them down for profit, or stashing them away under floorboards. The nation's economy was on the verge of grinding to a halt because there simply change wasn't left in circulation to conduct everyday business. President Lyndon B. Johnson knew something drastic had to be done. In 1965, Congress passed the Coinage Act, legally eliminating silver from dimes and quarters. Moving forward, the mint would produce a new kind of currency, a clad composition made of cheap copper and nickel. But transitioning a superpower's entire monetary system isn't like flipping a switch. To prevent even more hoarding, the government did something highly unusual. They ordered the mint to continue striking coins bearing the 1964 date well into 1965, using up the remaining silver blanks. Simultaneously, they began production on the new copper-nickel 1965 quarters. Can you imagine the chaotic scene inside the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints during this massive overlap? Workers were moving tens of millions of metal blanks, operating massive machinery around the clock under intense pressure to flood the market with new money. And in that high-stakes, frantic environment, the unthinkable happened. A handful of leftover 90% silver blanks from 1964 were accidentally left inside the feeder bins. When the heavy steel dies came crashing down to stamp out the brand new 1965 Washington quarters, they didn't hit cheap copper-nickel. They struck solid silver. The mint didn't realize the error until it was far too late. These forbidden silver quarters slipped past quality control, dropped into canvas bags, and were shipped across the country, vanishing directly into the pockets of unsuspecting Americans. This brings us to the ultimate mystery. How do you actually spot one? If you look at a standard 1965 quarter, it features the familiar profile of George Washington on the obverse and the proud American eagle on the reverse. Because of the frantic production rush that year, none of these quarters carry a mint mark, meaning they look identical at first glance. If you flip a normal 1965 quarter on its side, you will instantly see a distinct copper stripe running along the edge, the telltale sign of a modern clad coin. But if you flip over a rare transitional error, the edge is completely solid, bright silver. Yet looks can be deceiving. Over the decades, millions of quarters have been subjected to environmental damage, chemicals, or strange plating that can make a copper edge look silvery. The ultimate undeniable proof of a true 1965 silver error lies entirely in its weight. If you place a normal copper-nickel 1965 quarter on a precise digital scale, it will weigh exactly 5.67 grams. But if you place the legendary silver error on that same scale, the numbers will jump to 6.25 grams. That tiny fraction of a gram makes all the difference in the world. For decades, many numismatists believed these coins were nothing more than an urban legend, a myth whispered by hopeful collectors. But then, real examples began to surface. One incredibly preserved specimen shocked the collecting world when it went up for auction and commanded a staggering price tag of over $7,000. Another highly pristine version fetched even more. Today, depending on the condition, a certified 1965 silver Washington quarter can easily command anywhere from several $1,000s to nearly $10,000 from eager investors desperate to own a piece of this forbidden history. Think about the journey a coin like that has taken. For over 60 years, it may have passed through thousands of hands. It bought groceries during the 60s, sat in a jukebox during the 70s, was tossed into a toll booth in the 90s, and somehow survived a journey into the digital age without anyone noticing its true identity. It begs the question, how many more of these errors are still out there, buried in old coffee cans, stuck between couch cushions, or sitting right now in the change returner local vending machine? The truth is, no one knows exactly how many were struck. It could be a few dozen, or it could be a few hundred. The uncertainty is precisely what keeps the hunt alive. So, before you empty your pockets tonight, or pass past that jar of loose change on your counter, take a closer look. Check the date. Check the edge. And if you have a scale, check the weight. You might just find that a seemingly worthless piece of the past is your ticket to a whole new future. Have you ever checked your change for rare errors? Or do you know someone who found a hidden treasure in their pocket? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to look closely at your money. And, as always, happy hunting. Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out a handful of loose change, and flipping past a coin you've seen 1,000 times. It's an ordinary, everyday quarter. Or so you think. What if that single, unassuming piece of metal in the palm of your hand wasn't worth 25 cents, but was actually a hidden treasure worth thousands of dollars? Around the world, millions of people are spending a specific American coin entirely unaware of the incredible history and immense fortune hidden right on its surface. It's the ultimate numismatic mystery hiding in plain sight. This is the story of the 1976 Washington quarter with no mint mark, a coin that represents a turning point in a nation's history, a celebration of epic proportions, and a collector's dream that continues to spark intense treasure hunts across the globe. To understand why this coin is so special, we have to travel back in time to the mid-1970s. The United States was preparing to celebrate a monumental milestone, its bicentennial. 200 years of independence, survival, and growth. The U.S. Mint decided that an occasion this massive demanded something unprecedented. For the first time in history, they completely froze the production of regular dated coinage. Throughout the entirety of 1975 and 1976, every single quarter struck for circulation bore a unique, dual date, 1776 to 1976. This meant that no quarters actually carry the single date of 1975. Instead, over 2 billion of these special dual-dated coins were pumped into the American economy, capturing the collective imagination of a nation. But the Treasury didn't just change the date. They completely transformed the coin itself. They held a massive national design competition, inviting artists from every corner of the country to compete for a piece of numismatic immortality. The winner for the quarter dollar was Jack L. AHR, a designer whose vision would soon sit in the pockets of millions. He replaced the traditional, iconic American eagle on the reverse side with a powerful symbol of early American resilience, a colonial drummer boy standing next to a victory torch surrounded by 13 stars representing the original 13 colonies. On the front, John Flanagan's classic profile of George Washington remained, but underneath it sat that famous dual date. The public was absolutely mesmerized. People began hoarding them by the roll, convinced that these beautiful pieces of art would one day make them rich. But because the Philadelphia and Denver mints produced them in such staggering quantities, the vast majority of these circulated, everyday copper-nickel-clad coins remained worth exactly face value. So, how does a coin minted in the hundreds of millions become an incredibly rare, high-value treasure? The secret lies in a fascinating mix of geography, preservation, and microscopic minting errors. When you look closely at a 1976 bicentennial quarter, you might notice a tiny letter stamp just to the right of George Washington's ponytail. If you see a D, it means the coin was struck in Denver. If you see an S, it was minted in San Francisco, often as a special proof or a 40% silver version meant exclusively for collectors. But what if there is no letter at all? What if that space is completely blank? A 1976 quarter with no mint mark means it was born in the historic halls of the Philadelphia Mint. While a circulated Philadelphia quarter is common, finding one that has managed to escape the destructive wear and tear of daily commerce is an entirely different story. Think about it. For half a century, these coins have been thrown into vending machines, dropped on a pavement, scraped against keys, and passed from hand to hand. To find a 1976 Philadelphia quarter in absolute, pristine, uncirculated condition, what graders call mint state, is an extraordinary rarity. When one of these flawlessly preserved coins surfaces, the collector world goes into a frenzy. A standard 1976 no mint mark quarter in an exceptional grade like Mint State 67 or higher can easily command hundreds or even thousands of dollars at elite auction houses. Collectors are willing to pay a massive premium for perfection, chasing the elusive, flawless specimens that somehow survived 50 years without a single scratch. But the story gets even more thrilling for treasure hunters because of the hidden mistakes made in the chaos of production. Imagine the high-speed machinery at the Mint striking blank metal discs at a rate of hundreds of coins per minute. Sometimes things go wrong. Collectors actively hunt for the legendary double die errors on these no mint mark quarters. This happens when the coin die strikes the metal more than once, leaving a distinct, ghost-like doubling effect on the letters of liberty or the phrase "In God We Trust." Other times, a coin is struck off-center, or a piece of debris gets caught in the machinery, leaving a unique, unrepeatable stamp on history. These rare, accidental masterpieces turn a common pocket piece into an invaluable artifact. It makes you wonder, how many of these pristine survivors or error coins are sitting quietly at the bottom of old jars, forgotten in piggy banks, or tucked away in the back of a drawer? The 1976 bicentennial quarter is more than just 25 cents. It is a tangible piece of a nationwide celebration, a token of a country looking back at its revolutionary roots while looking forward to the future. It bridges the gap between everyday life and the elite world of high-stakes coin collecting. The next time you receive change at a grocery store or find a stray coin on the ground, don't just brush it aside. Take a closer look. Turn it over in your fingers. Look for the colonial drummer boy, check the dual date, and look closely for that empty space next to Washington's profile. You might just be holding a direct link to the birth of a nation and a hidden fortune waiting to be discovered. Have you ever checked your change for one of these historic bicentennial quarters? What is the rarest coin you have ever found in your everyday life? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more incredible journeys into the world's most fascinating hidden treasures. Imagine holding a tiny piece of metal in the palm of your hand, completely unaware that it carries a hidden secret capable of changing your life overnight. Most of us pass thousands of quarters through our hands without a second thought. We toss them into vending machines, leave them in car cup holders, or let them gather dust in jars. But right now, there is a specific version of a 1995 Denver minted Washington quarter floating around in circulation that has collectors absolutely obsessed. To the untrained eye, it looks exactly like any other 25-cent piece. Yet, to those who know what to look for, this pocket change is a rare treasure waiting to be discovered. What makes this seemingly ordinary coin so incredibly special? And how did a simple mistake at the United States Mint turn a quarter worth 25 cents into a prize worth thousands of dollars? To understand the magic of this coin, we have to travel back to 1995. The world was changing rapidly. The internet was just starting to enter mainstream homes, and the Denver Mint was pumping out billions of coins to keep up with the demands of a booming American economy. The Washington quarter had been a staple of American currency since 1932, originally introduced to celebrate the bicentennial of George Washington's birth. Designed by sculptor John Flanagan, the image of America's first president had become an iconic symbol of stability and strength. By the mid-1990s, the minting process was highly automated, designed to produce perfection at lightning speed. Millions of quarters rolled off the presses every single day, each one expected to be identical to the last. But in the world of coin collecting, perfection is boring. It is the human element, the mechanical failures, and the unexpected anomalies that create true legends. Every coin tells a story, but an error coin tells a mystery. During the production run at the Denver Mint in 1995, something went subtly, beautifully wrong. While the vast majority of the 1995 D quarters left the facility looking pristine, a microscopic flaw was introduced to a tiny batch of them. Experts call it a double die error. This happens when the hub impresses its image onto the working die incorrectly, causing a distinct misalignment. When that flawed die strikes a blank copper-nickel planchet, it leaves behind a ghostly, duplicated image. On the 1995 D quarter, if you look closely at the obverse side, specifically around the Liberty lettering and the mint mark, you might notice a distinct doubling of the letters. It's as if the coin is vibrating under a magnifying glass. But why does a tiny manufacturing mistake command such a massive premium? The answer lies in the sheer rarity and the thrill of the hunt. The United States Mint has incredibly strict quality control measures. When an error occurs, the flawed coins are usually caught, destroyed, and melted down before they ever leave the building. For a batch of double die quarters to escape the watchful eyes of mint inspectors and make it into public canvas bags is a statistical miracle. Once they entered circulation, they vanished into the massive sea of everyday commerce. They went to banks, grocery stores, and laundromats. Decades later, a significant number of these rare errors are still out there, hiding in plain sight, passed from person to person by people who have no idea they are holding history. When numismatists first discovered the 1995 D double die quarter, panic and excitement rippled through the collecting community. Roll hunters began buying up boxes of 1,995 quarters from banks, spending countless hours under bright desk lamps with jewelers' loupes, searching for that telltale doubling. The value of these coins skyrocketed based on their condition. While a heavily circulated version might fetch a modest premium, a pristine, uncirculated specimen, one that somehow avoided the scratches and scuffs of daily life, can command astronomical prices at auction, sometimes climbing into the thousands of dollars. It turns the mundane act of checking your pocket change into a high-stakes treasure hunt. Think about the journey a single coin takes over 30 years. Who held it first? Was it given as allowance to a child in the 90s? Did it sit in a cash register during a historic moment? Did it travel across the country in the pocket of a traveler? Now, imagine that throughout this entire journey, that coin held a secret value that could pay a month's rent or fund a vacation, completely unnoticed by everyone who touched it. It makes you wonder how many times you might have actually held one of these rare pieces of history, only to carelessly hand it over to a cashier. The allure of the 1995 D Washington quarter isn't just about the money. It is about the romance of discovery. It proves that treasure hunting isn't reserved for deep-sea divers exploring Spanish galleons or archaeologists digging in ancient ruins. True treasure can be found at the bottom of your couch cushions, in the coin return of a vending machine, or inside an old piggy bank in your attic. It is a reminder that history is tangible, and sometimes the extraordinary is masquerading as the ordinary. So, before you empty your pockets tonight or spend your change on a morning coffee, take a moment to look a little closer. Grab a magnifying glass and examine the date, the letters, and that little D mint mark. Look for the subtle shadows and the doubled lines that elevate a common coin into a collector's dream. Have you ever checked your old coins for errors like this? Or perhaps you've already found a hidden gem buried in your change. The next time you hold a 1995 quarter, remember that you might just be holding a piece of a modern numismatic mystery. What hidden treasures are waiting in your pocket right now? Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out a handful of spare change, and looking right past a fortune. We do it every single day. Most quarters are worth exactly 25 cents, barely enough to buy anything at all. But right now, there are a handful of standard-looking Washington quarters from the late 1990s floating around out there that are worth thousands of times their face value. One specific variety from 1998, struck at the Philadelphia Mint, recently sent shockwaves through the numismatic community when it sold for a staggering sum. The wildest part? It looks almost identical to the change sitting in your car's cup holder right now. How could a modern coin, minted by the millions, become a holy grail for treasure hunters? To understand the mystery of the 1998 Philadelphia quarter, we have to travel back to the late 1990s, a period of massive transition for American currency. For nearly 60 years, the Washington quarter had remained relatively unchanged. Designed by sculptor John Flanagan in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth, the coin was a stoic symbol of American stability. It featured the iconic left-facing portrait of the nation's first president on the obverse, and a majestic bald eagle with outspread wings on the reverse. By 1998, this classic design was reaching the absolute end of its era. The U.S. Mint was preparing to launch the wildly popular 50-state quarters program in 1999, which meant the machinery at the mints was working overtime, undergoing massive retooling, and pushing out the final batches of the traditional design. When mint facilities operate under intense pressure, human errors and mechanical anomalies skyrocket. And that is exactly where our story takes a turn into the extraordinary. The United States Mint in Philadelphia, represented by the small p mint mark just to the right of Washington's ponytail, was churning out hundreds of millions of these quarters in 1998. On paper, a coin with such a massive mintage should never be rare. It should be worth face value forever. But in the chaotic rush of production, a microscopic miracle happened. A tiny handful of these coins were struck using a highly unusual combination of dies, or suffered severe, pristine striking errors that went completely unnoticed by quality control inspectors. Think about the sheer scale of the operation. Millions of metal planchets feeding into high-speed coining presses, stamping out coins at a rate of dozens per second. Amidst this mechanical symphony, a flawless specimen emerged. What makes a specific 1998 P quarter worth thousands of dollars isn't a massive, obvious misprint like a double image you can see from across the room. Instead, it is a combination of immaculate preservation and a rare minting phenomenon known as a mule strike or an exceptionally rare proof like finish on a business strike coin. Imagine a coin struck with such perfect pressure, using brand new, highly polished dies that were intended for a different purpose, that the fields of the coin became as reflective as a mirror, while the raised details of Washington's face remained frosted and sharp. When standard quarters are minted for general circulation, they quickly get banged up, tossed into heavy canvas bags, and scratched by other coins. Finding a 1998 P quarter that survived this brutal process in absolute perfection, graded at the ultimate peak of the coin grading scale, is statistically near impossible. It is a true survivor against all odds. When one of these pristine, conditionally rare 1998 P Washington quarters surfaced at a major auction, it ignited a fierce bidding war. Collectors realized they were looking at a coin that shouldn't logically exist in that condition. When the dust settled, the coin fetched a breathtaking price, proving that rarity isn't just about how old a coin is, but how perfectly it survived the crucible of time. This opens up a fascinating question for anyone who handles money. How many of these hidden treasures were accidentally spent on a pack of gum or dropped into a vending machine? How many people have held a genuine fortune in their hands, only to pass it along because they didn't know what to look for? The cultural significance of the 1998 quarter cannot be overstated. It marks the definitive end of the traditional Washington quarter era. The very next year, George Washington's portrait was resized, the text was rearranged, and the eagle on the back disappeared to make way for the states. The 1998 P is the final curtain call for a design that witnessed the greatest events of the 20th century. So how do you spot one? The secret lies in the details. You want to look for a 1998 quarter with that distinct P mint mark. Next, look closer. Is the finish extraordinarily shiny, almost like a mirror? Are the details incredibly sharp, without a single scratch or nick from circulation? Even if it is a standard error, like a dramatic off-center strike where the coin's design is shifted, it could be worth a massive premium. The world of treasure hunting has shifted. You no longer need a map to an island or a shovel to find buried gold. The greatest treasures of the modern era are hidden in plain sight, disguised as ordinary, everyday objects, waiting for someone with the knowledge and the patience to look closer. Next time you receive change at a grocery store, take a brief moment before you toss it into a jar or pocket it. Look for the year 1998. Look for the letter P. Examine the edges, the luster, and the crispness of the eagle's feathers. You might just be holding a piece of history that could change your financial life forever. Have you ever checked your change for rare mint marks or errors? Or do you have a jar of old coins sitting at home right now that you haven't looked at in years? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to stay tuned for more incredible stories of hidden fortunes waiting to be discovered.